The protesters camping out in a 6-block section of the city, calling it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. The president saying the mayor needs to take action now.
If there were more toughness, you wouldn't have the kind of devastation that you had in Minneapolis and in Seattle. I mean, let's see what's going on in Seattle. But I will tell you, if they don't straighten that situation out, we're going to straighten it out.
Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace joins us now. Chris, good morning.
Morning to you, Ed.
You, of course, are the author of the new book, Countdown 1945, the extraordinary story of the atomic bomb and the 116 days that changed the world. An extraordinary time then, and we are living in extraordinary times now. In Seattle, the police, it seems, were told, abandon your East Precinct. The Wall Street Journal says it's basically Occupy Wall Street types seizing several blocks of the city. But the mayor says, Chris, it's just going to be like the summer of love. Your thoughts?
This is either, my guess is, and don't hold me to this, but I would think this is going to be over one way or another in a week, that either they're just going to get tired of it, and I don't know the degree to which the folks in Seattle are going to blockade them so that they run out of provisions, or I think you're going to see an increasing push to force them out. I would be surprised. I heard what you said about the president. You know, when you see what Mark Milley said, and the General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and Secretary of Defense Esper, I can't imagine that the military, the president is commander-in-chief, he can do whatever he wants. I can't imagine that the military wants to get involved in a domestic dispute and a use of force. But whether it's the National Guard or the police, I would think that at a certain point that as we've seen in these cases, you try to wait them out, and then when you can't, you use force to push them out, and those don't end well, as we've seen in Waco and other cases around the country. Right,
and to your point, the president yesterday in Dallas, when he was talking about police reform and racial inequality and how to try and fix it, was touting the use of the National Guard in Minneapolis, and he can certainly do that because order was restored. But to your point, there's been a lot of controversy about the use of force, Lafayette Square and other places. But at the bottom line, Chris, what do you do if you can't control a city? I mean, at some point, somebody needs to act.
Well, yeah, and the one big difference from Minneapolis is that the governor there, Governor Walz, he was the one who called the National Guard in, which is what normally happens. The governors mobilize the National Guard. There's a question as to whether Governor Inslee in Washington State is willing to call the National Guard. Would the president go over his head, whether it's the National Guard or, and then to order a movement, a forcible eviction? You know, it isn't the whole city, it's 6 square blocks, but obviously this can't be allowed to continue for very long. You would hope that folks would come to their senses and get out, or just get tired and get out. Short of that, though, you know, as I say, oftentimes it ends up with the use of force, and that doesn't end well.
And to your point, here's what Governor Inslee said on Twitter. What we will not allow are threats of military violence against Washingtonians coming from the White House. The U.S. military serves to protect Americans, not the fragility of an insecure president. So he's taking his shot there. But I seem to remember 2-3 nights ago when this started, the governor himself was saying, I don't really know that much about this, as if he was in the dark.
Well, he does now, and it's going to become a national issue, and you can be sure that all of us in the media are going to go there. The autonomous zone of Capitol Hill in Washington State, not Washington, D.C. This can't stand for much longer. I would think within a week something is going to happen to end this. You can't have people just taking over, even if it's 6 square blocks. You can't have people taking over major American cities and declaring them government-free zones and independent republics. I mean, I got to say, I've seen everything, but I think I've seen everything, and then I see something I haven't seen before.
That's why I teed it up by saying you've got this book out. You're talking about 1945. We're talking about extraordinary times in American history. In the last minute or so we have, as you get ready for Fox News Sunday and you can tee up who you're going to have, what do you think about this moment in American history and how the president's trying to navigate it?
Well, one of the things about Countdown 1945 that really struck me is that the Manhattan Project for 2+ years 125,000 people across the country in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Los Alamos, and Hanford, Washington. They were all working, 125,000 people, and it never leaked. Nobody said anything. Today, I mean, if we had 125,000 people working on baking apple pie, somebody would tweet tomorrow or Instagram tomorrow that this was outrageous and immoral and that they were going to blow the whistle on it. So the point I'm making is that there was a unity back then. There was a sense of common purpose. There was a sense that we're all in this together. And we don't have that today. And it's too bad. And I think that we suffer from that, the lack of common purpose and unity in the country today. That's one of the biggest differences in writing 1945 between then and now.
So particularly important points you just made, and as you head into this weekend for Fox News Sunday, the president talking about police reform. The Democrats started the week off with their bill. You hear a lot of talk, not just from the House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, but Tim Scott is really running point for Senate Republicans as well.
Yeah, we're going to have Karen Bass, Congresswoman, chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus. She's the leader from the House Democrats in terms of their policing bill and the reforms they want to do. We're asking the White House for a top official. They haven't come back to us yet on that. Another story that we've got is, and another guest we've got is Dr. Michael Osterholm, one of the top epidemiologists in the country from the University of Minnesota, because you know, I hate to say it, but there is a spike in the coronavirus, particularly across the South, in some of the states that were the last to shut down and the earliest to open. Arizona, Texas, Florida, we're seeing 40% increases in cases. Some of it may be because of more testing, but some of it seems to be a spread of the disease. So we'll be talking about that with Dr. Osterholm on Sunday.
We look forward to that on Sunday. Good luck with the book. Chris, thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Ed.
Sandra.